Welcome to an episode of First Draft Pharmacy, where we discuss and hopefully solve some of your biggest writing issues. Today, I'm going to talk about why your characters might be falling flat. I'm going to share 5 questions to ask yourself to figure out why and hopefully fix the problem. Let's go. When I was working on my first novel, when you read this with my literary agent, she was concerned that one character, whose name is Smith, was just not interesting. She wasn't connecting to him and was worried that readers wouldn't either. And I got it because I didn't really connect with him either. He was depressed and kind of passive, a dude who just sort of went to work and did his job and felt sad about his life. I really had no clue how to spice him up until I had an idea, and it worked. I'm going to tell you what it is in a minute, but first I'm going to walk you through my first couple of questions you want to ask to figure out why your characters are falling flat. The first question is, are you in their heads enough? Books are really different from TV and film. On a screen, you can't actually get into the head of a character and say what they're thinking or how they feel about something. You can only show it. You have to demonstrate the emotional state of characters through the actors' facial expressions and actions and the words they're literally saying. But in a book, the opposite is true. We get to get into their heads and hearts. You know, what on earth is she doing? Damien thought, his heart racing. His hands were clammy. He wished he were anywhere else. I just made up those few lines, but you see what I mean? We're inside Damien's head and in his body, feeling what he's feeling and sensing what he's sensing. That's what a novel or a memoir can do, and that's what readers expect when they come to reading. A lot of times I see new writers failing to realize this. Their first draft reads more like a screenplay, all action and no internal life of characters. Again, works great for TV and movies, but not for fiction. For example, let's look at Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first Indiana Jones movie. In the opening scene, Harrison Ford, aka Indiana Jones, has to receive an ancient golden artifact from a cave that's full of booby traps. In the movie, we see Indiana narrowly dodging these booby traps, jumping over bottomless pits, and sliding under a closing rock door, running away from a really big boulder rolling after him. If that scene were in a novel, we'd be hearing his thoughts while he was escaping all these booby traps. His heart rate would be racing. He's wondering if he's gonna survive. Or maybe he'd be thinking analytically, focusing logically on what he needs to do with each step to get out alive. Either way, in a novel, if we didn't have these interior moments, it wouldn't work. It would be hard to experience the novel. So how do you do this? How do you figure out what a character is thinking and feeling? This brings me to my second question I want you to ask, which is, how would you feel? If one of your characters is falling flat, another thing that may be missing is empathy, your own empathy for your characters. Maybe you're at a point in your story where you're not sure what your character should do next. Imagine yourself in their shoes. What would you do and feel in that scenario? If your main character is a teenage ballerina who breaks her leg and can't dance anymore, it doesn't matter that you never took ballet and aren't a teenager. How might you feel if something you cared about suddenly became impossible? Would you retreat into yourself, lash out, turn to something self-destructive, lean on someone else? Your characters in fiction aren't always going to be just like you, of course, but asking yourself how you would respond emotionally in a given situation can be a really helpful jumping off point for cultivating a rich internal life for them. Which brings me to the third question to ask, which is, are you playing to the top of your intelligence? This is a rule I learned from improv. Play to the top of your intelligence. If you're unfamiliar, improv is a kind of theatrical performance where the actors improvise the scene that they're performing as they're performing it. Basically, they're making it up as they go along. It's really fun. I used to do it in my 20s when I was living in New York, even though I was terrible at it because it was just really fun. Even though the improvisers are making everything up as they go along, there are actually a lot of techniques and principles that you memorize when you're doing improv. And playing to the top of your intelligence is one of them. This phrase, playing to the top of your intelligence, means that your characters always need to be at least as smart as you are. If you step out on stage as a cow, that cow should be as smart as you are. If you step out on stage as a lamppost, that lamppost has the same SAT score that you do. You catch my drift? The reason is that when you dumb things down, the reader, and in that case the audience, but in this case the reader, will also feel smarter than your characters. And as soon as we feel smarter than the characters we're reading about, it's hard to want to follow them. And it's hard to trust them to make good decisions. This doesn't have to be complicated. Just have your characters do what a person as smart as you would do. If someone's kid is missing, she's probably not just gonna sit around doing nothing. She's gonna hire a PI or badger the police or put up posters. What she does doesn't so much matter. Playing to the top of your intelligence, though, is a way of making sure your characters come across as real, because they're doing what a real person might do, not just a two-dimensional character. Okay, I have 2 more tips for you around writing stronger characters. But first, I just want to invite you to apply to my program, the Book Incubator. The link is below this video. It's just 2 questions, takes under 5 minutes. And if you're writing a book, you'll definitely want to check it out. Now back to the video. The next question is, could you give someone a secret? I love this trick. And to go back to what I told you earlier, this is what I did for my character Smith, the character I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. I gave him a secret, a gambling addiction. It instantly made him more alive to me. Since then, I have used this trick whenever I need to deepen a character, or whenever I'm just personally not relating to a character. And I love sharing this tactic with writers and my program, the Book Incubator. It's truly gold because secrets make everything and everyone more interesting. If you think about the last time you heard a secret about someone, I mean, they instantly became more interesting to you, right? It's just true. We all know it's true. And the same is true for fictional characters. When we give them secrets, they not only become more interesting to readers, they become more interesting to us, the writer. And that makes them more fun to write, which makes it easier to sit down and get our pages done. So, what secret could your character have? Sit down and brainstorm. Just list anything that comes to mind, and then pick one that seems to have good energy. There's also, by the way, an extra benefit to your plot. When a character has information they don't want other people to know, it introduces a whole host of other possibilities to your plot. That person is going to do things they might not normally do to keep their secret. You can also play around with who actually already knows the secret or suspects the secret. You can play around with how and when the secret gets revealed. When it does, what will the other characters do with this information? How will they respond? So many interesting questions arise when you toss a secret in the mix, and it's just an easy and guaranteed way to keep your audience engaged. This is what dramatic irony is, by the way, when your audience knows something that the characters don't. And then your audience is watching to see how it unfolds. The last question I want you to ask about your characters are they too consistent? On August 9th, 2010, JetBlue flight 1052 taxied to a stop on the tarmac at JFK Airport in New York. And as the plane rolled to a stop, Stephen Slater, a veteran flight attendant, announced over the plane's loudspeaker system that he was quitting his job. He then grabbed 2 beers, deployed the giant yellow inflatable evacuation slide, and slid down it. Talk about quitting with flair. Mr. Slater became a kind of hero to many disgruntled American workers that day. He also went to jail. Here's the thing. Writers working on fiction are always trying to make their characters consistent. They'll ask me, is this consistent? How do I make sure this action is consistent with my character? And it always strikes me as kind of funny because human beings are not consistent, guys. We do surprising and weird things. We are all Steve Slater. And if we aren't, we kind of want to be, you know? If you're feeling like your characters are stuck or your plot isn't clicking, think about the ways in which your characters could do something out of character for them. What would straight up surprise you? For example, a meek museum security guard who always follows the rules decides one day to steal a painting or just add to it with his pen. Totally out of character maybe, but so interesting. What can your characters do that is inconsistent for them? That can really spice things up. If you made it this far in the video, I'm guessing that you're writing a book or you want to write a book. And if so, I would love to hear from you. Because when I'm not writing, my mission in life is to help writers write their dream books. I love it. I live for it. If you're curious to know more, I have a free video walking you through my exact process for writing a novel. You can get it by clicking below and answering just 2 questions to apply to my program, The Book Incubator. You can get the video whether you join or not. There's not pressure to enroll. So just click below and tell me a little bit about you and your book or your book idea. I'm so excited to hear from you.